For USCFootball.com, I'm Keely Eure here with Shotgun Spratling for instant analysis of USC's 38-13 win over Washington State. Shotgun, first off, let's get your overall thoughts. What do you make of this performance? I feel like it's a tale of two halves. The first quarter, Amon-Ra St. Brown gets 4 touchdowns. Kedon Slovis looks like the Kedon Slovis of old. The defense looks good against Washington State. Then the second half, like Clay Helton said himself, leaves much to desire. You want more from USC's offense. They still haven't scored a touchdown in the third quarter in 2020. So first off, what do you make of this game?
I think you look at it and you say, hey, look, USC's progressing. Obviously they beat Utah, but Clay Helton said, hey, we couldn't put the game away in the first half. They did that tonight against Washington State. You look back to last year when USC dominated the first quarter against Arizona State and then let them back in the game and let them back in. This game, they put their foot on the gas in the first half. They put the game out of reach, and then they coasted in the second half. Now, they did some things that they probably wouldn't do normally, but there's a short week this week with UCLA game coming up, with this game being on a Sunday, UCLA on Saturday, and if they win that, they're in the Pac-12 championship on a Friday, so 3 games in 13 days. So they sat almost all the defensive front guys in the third quarter. They barely played. Drake Jackson played a couple snaps. Marlon Tupelotu, I don't think, played a snap in the second half. So you got some guys some rest. Obviously, you want the offense to do more. In the third quarter in particular, they had a couple of short fields that the defense again gave them, but they couldn't put their foot on the gas. Washington State made some adjustments. Their defense came out. USC has to run the ball better to beat better teams. They did not run the ball at all this game. Now, part of that, you can attribute it to some young offensive linemen did participate in this game. Cortland Ford had a start at left guard with Andrew Voorhees out. Liam Jimmons left the game early. Jonah Monheim stepped in that spot. So 2 true freshmen playing at the guard spots. So that played into it, but you got to do better than 5 yards in the game. Their running backs had 16 carries. They had 15 yards combined. This is a defense that was giving up 195 yards a game on the ground their first 2 matchups. Now, Clay Helton said, hey, we saw some different looks, and Amon-Ra St. Brown talked about how they came out and played man coverage. They were licking their chops, and maybe that's because Washington State had a bunch of DBs out, so maybe it was a little bit more easier for them to play man-to-man coverage early rather than try to go to zone. And so they did that, and USC took advantage. They were able to throw the ball. But then in the second half, when they started giving more too high looks and some different things, you got to be able to run the ball, salt the game away. It was actually Washington State that started this game away because they had a couple really long drives in the second half, and they didn't really do anything with them. Now, they scored late against USC's backups, and give credit, again, for USC finally getting some backups in there with a blowout win. So there's some positives to take away from it, but you feel like there were points left on the board. And when you're waking up on the East Coast tomorrow, because you turn this game off really quick, and you're one of those college football playoff ranking people, and you're looking at it, you're going to go 38-13, that's okay. But if you saw 45-6 or 52-6, you go, oh, wow, that's a dominant performance. Not a big win, but a dominant performance. And I think that's the difference. Now, is USC getting in the college football playoff? No, but they can continue to move up the rankings, and that's going to help you in recruiting. That's going to help you in a lot of other areas. And it's just those small things they keep leaving on the table that you feel like you're just not getting that complete victory from USC. But still, a big win for USC. They took care of business, and especially with the short week, to give them an opportunity to rest some players was really big in this one.
Yeah, in that sense, it seems like just what the doctor ordered. Circling back to Kedon Slovis and Amon-Ra St. Brown, I know Clay Helton and both players after the game said that it felt kind of like a bye week last week when they were forced to sit. So they looked fresher out there, but how much do you attribute the success that both Kedon and Amon-Ra St. Brown had due to the man looks that Washington State was giving them versus maybe zone that they've seen the past 3 games? Or is it just a fresher arm, a chance to take a break and come back fresh in this game?
I think Kedon Slovis just reset everything. He said going into that Colorado game, he was really looking forward to it because he made some steps in the Utah game. He still wasn't, up to his normal level, and I think you're seeing it. So it sounds to me, if there was an elbow injury, if there was any kind of injury, that's healed up. But more than likely, it was something a little bit mental with him, and he's jumped over that hurdle. And you saw, and I think especially what he was able to do in that first drive, some short throws that USC got him going. You throw the ball to Drake London, you throw a 6-yard pass, and it turns into a 30-yard gain. Those type of things get a quarterback going, especially when they're in their own head a little bit. He made some easy throws, was able to connect on those, and then later in the game, he could make the harder throws, the fade balls to Amon-Ra St. Brown, the ones to Tyler Vaughns. That was probably an easy throw, too, because he was wide open there. The wide receivers helped out a lot in this game, how open they were, and he didn't have to do too much. In the second half, USC could have done, Washington State changed some things up. They could have done a little bit better, protecting him, and then, creating some of those easier opportunities. But Washington State started dropping back in coverage, so they got to make some improvements there. But I think that first half tells you Keaton Slovis has got over his hurdle, that whatever it was that was ailing him earlier in the season, and now he's ready to take off. And if he takes off, that's when the offense takes off. You saw his ball placement in the first half was so much better than it had been the first 3 games. Where he was able to put those ball on those fade routes for Amon-Ra St. Brown, that was the difference to me in that first half. Not that USC was just wide open on every play, besides the Tyler Vaughn's touchdown, but the fact that he was able to throw the ball to where only his receiver could get it, and those receivers are going to go make great catches all day.
Yeah. Now, going back to the run game, obviously a net of 5 yards rushing is not what you want, but like you said, you had two true freshmen playing with COVID issues. We knew that USC's offensive line was going to be something you had to watch for coming into this game. Do you chalk it up to some newness and you can't do as much as you can, or do you look at this whole season and go, they still haven't run the ball?
No, they still haven't run the ball. They've got to do better at it, and you need to see progress. We've seen progress on the defensive side each week. We've seen progress in certain areas of the offense, but the running game has to get better. Maybe be more consistent with it. Give the guys more opportunities, but they're just not doing enough. Now, let's go ahead and put it out there. It wasn't just that USC was without Andrew Voorhees, a starter. They lost Liam Jimmons later in the game, so down 2 starters, but also their 2 top backups. Justin Dedich and Liam Douglas were both not on the sidelines, so we assume they were part of the COVID protocols as well. So, those guys being out, you're down 4 of your top 8 linemen, top 7 or 8 linemen, so you have to go to true freshmen. So that does play into it, and the communication issues and having it on both sides. But they have to do better. They should be able to run the ball against a front like this, like Washington State has. They're bigger guys. They're stronger. They need to just be able to muscle guys out of the way and run the ball a little bit more effectively. Even if you're running it for 60 or 80 yards, that's so much different than 5. I mean, to be able to pick up the situations, and in the second half be able to run the ball and not, have Keaton Slovis get hit a couple times. He left the game with an injury. He got hit. He sat on his funny bone, and he lost kind of feeling. His fingers got stuck, he said.
Yeah.
And he got a couple other big hits. So those type things, when you're up big in a game, that shouldn't be happening. You should be able to run the ball and keep your quarterback clean. That didn't happen tonight.
Mm-hmm. Now, Shotgun, I feel like every instant analysis we're talking about USC's inside linebacker health, and it's no different tonight. Raylan Goforth was not dressed out at the start of USC's warm-up, so then you're wondering, okay, what does that position look like in the game? And it looks like Todd Orlando had some creative solutions to that problem.
Yeah, and you also had Palaie Naitiote still in concussion protocol. He was not here in the stadium that I saw. So what do you go with? A suggestion that I had last week was, what? I did say it. Come on, I said it. Was to put Talanoa Hufanga in the box. And what I suggested just kind of using him as a linebacker. That's what they did, but they also went with a dime package where they used several safeties. You had Max Williams on the field. You had Greg Johnson. You had Chase Williams on the field, as well as Isaiah Pullum and Talanoa Hufanga and the 2 cornerbacks. So you had 7 true DBs out there, and 5 of them were safety bodies. So that helps with a running quarterback like Jaden DeLora, a mobile guy. When he gets out of the pocket, hey, you got guys that can chase him down a little bit better, even if he does break out of the pocket. So they were able to contain that portion of the game. And then Talanoa Hufanga was all over the place. Yeah. He's such a dynamic weapon that you can use him as a blitzer. You can use him dropping back. You can use him in coverage man-to-man. You can do all kinds of things with him. And that's what Todd Orlando did. He said, let me use my biggest piece, my biggest puzzle piece on the chessboard. I can move this guy anywhere. He's kind of like the queen on the chessboard. I can put him anywhere. He's the most violent guy out there. And he made big plays after big play. He had an interception and then hurdles a guy.
Yeah. Wow.
And it was just unfortunate that he couldn't get the last 4 or 5 yards, get in the end zone. He had to run out of bounds there. But a terrific play there. But the USC defense creating turnovers. And that's why USC's offense was able to score 28 points in the first quarter, is because they had short fields over and over. They put together some nice drives, but the defense gave them short fields routinely. Elijah Griffin, give him credit with his first career interception as well. And Chase Williams had a fumble recovery. So the defense has been making big plays for USC multiple times in the backfield as well for sacks. And Talanoa Hufanga was a part of that. Couple of Nick Figueroa's hat trick of sacks, give him credit.
Yeah, hello.
Started with Talanoa Hufanga getting the initial pressure, and then Nick Figueroa cleaned it up. And that's what you have to do. Multiple guys got to be in the backfield. And it started with Talanoa Hufanga being able to use him in different ways. And Todd Orlando, I thought it was a masterful game plan, and something, especially with the offense they were facing, being able to get all those safety bodies on the field to be able to run and hit and tackle guys in open space. It was a great defensive plan, and you saw the results of it. USC's defense was spectacular, and they have, like we said, they have progressed each game this season, which should give you a lot of optimism for this USC team going forward. if the offense can put it together for 4 quarters, which we're still waiting on, they did do that last year against UCLA, so maybe we'll see it next week against the Bruins.
Yeah, well, after the Utah game, you and I noted how there was just this fire and this energy in the defensive performance, and we were wondering if it would carry over. You have a week off, but then it seemed like that energy continued. What have you seen from this defense overall? And I know Todd Orlando has noted, we didn't have a spring camp. We didn't really get to install this defense. Was it really just a matter of time and getting these players used to this new scheme?
I think so, and I think the linebacker play, now if we include Talanoa Hufanga part of that tonight, but the linebacker play the last 2 games, has been what the difference is. The linebackers have to make plays. They didn't really make a bunch of plays the first couple weeks. They've made a ton of plays the last 2 games, and that's been the difference in this defense. If the linebackers coming downhill and tackling, then you can shut down the run game, and you have guys that can cover. I mean, Raylan Goforth is a former safety in high school. Talanoa Hufanga using him in that spot. Those guys can cover as well, so it just makes the defense that much more dynamic, and you don't always have to blitz. They like to blitz and then do it a ton, but you don't always have to blitz because the front defensive line group has been really good at getting the quarterback as well.
Mm-hmm. USC is now 4-0 and heads to the Rose Bowl for the crosstown showdown that will decide the Pac-12 South. The USC is pretty much in the driver's seat. I know a lot of people have questions about Colorado since they too are undefeated right now, but USC is in control, right, Shotgun?
Yes, the tiebreaker here goes down to division games. There's a couple of other tiebreakers in front of it, but it will ultimately come down to division games. And because Colorado did not get to play Arizona State, if both teams are able to play next week, and as long as USC wins, they will advance to the Pac-12 championship. And if they win next week, they'll be hosting because everyone in the North has a loss now. So USC will by virtue of that, be able to host the Pac-12 championship game as well.
Yeah, so obviously you need to take care of business against your rival, but especially so with all the implications this season. Now, I think it's worth noting that big props to USC for being able to even play in this game. At one point, you were staring at 4 COVID-positive players in a Friday night matchup, and here we are on a Sunday, and USC not only played, but came out with a win.
Yeah, give a lot of credit to USC and what they've been able to do this year with all the COVID stuff. When it struck a couple weeks ago before the Colorado game, you just felt like, it finally has happened. But look how quickly they were able to nip it in the bud and be able to get back on the field. And props to the Pac-12, Washington State, and USC for moving this game so that USC would have the adequate number of players at the offensive line position, even if they had to put some young guys in there. And, we'll see how they did when we rewatch the game a little bit later in the week. But to be able to play the game is the most important portion of it. And, USC is taking care of business with their COVID protocol stuff after they got hit with a couple of positive tests and some contact tracing. So a lot of props there for what they've been able to do off the field to be able to get on the field. And if they keep playing well, one more week of playing well, they get to come back to the Coliseum. And this is not their final game. This could be the final game in the Coliseum, but we'll see what happens next week to whether or not USC can, if they control their own destiny, if they make the most of it.
Yep. Alrighty, Shotgun, any final thoughts before we wrap it up here in the Coliseum?
No, the defense had a tremendous performance, and it was great to see Keaton Slovis look like Keaton Slovis of 2019. And hey, it wasn't perfect. There's a lot of things they're gonna have to clean up in the second half, but you gotta be, excited about the fact that they finally put a team away and were able to get the backup some time. That extra playing time for those reserves at the end. You never know if there's a positive test when someone like a freshman like a Cortland Ford is going to have to start. So maybe that extra playing time there at the end helps out someone down the road as well.
Good point. Alrighty, that's going to wrap it up from USC's 38-13 win over Washington State. For Shotgun Spratling, I'm Keely Eure. For more, check out uscfootball.com.